So in today's video, I'll be taking you through two previously undiscussed eyewitness accounts describing a second Range Rover similar to that owned by Tucker, Tate and Rolfe, who with its occupants was seen acting suspiciously in the lead up to Tucker, Tate and Rolfe's murders. This video will also examine the potential of third-party involvement in these murders, and when we take a look at the second eyewitness account, discuss its close proximity to one of the men convicted of these crimes, Jack Wombs. To start with, I'll be taking you through the first eyewitness account, which comes from the early morning of December the 6th, the day that Tucker, Tate and Rolfe were killed. Take a listen to the following. The following police statement is from Sean Kevin Morgan, dated the 22nd of the 2nd, 1996. I'm an area manager for the Co-op Chemist, and as part of my role I travel around all of South Essex. On the 7th of December 1995, as a result of media coverage about the murders of a group of men in a Range Rover at Rettendon, Essex, I contacted police regarding a vehicle I had seen on December the 6th. I know it was the 6th as it was the day before the news reports of the murders. I recall that at about 9:30 hours that morning, I was travelling from Tiptree towards the A12 Colchester bound in my car, a blue-green Vauxhall Cavalier, along a road which passes Rivenhall End and joins the A12. Whilst travelling along this road, I crossed a small bridge before meeting the A12 junction. I recall at this time there was quite a bit of traffic due to restricted passing on the bridge, and I was travelling slowly. I remember seeing a blue Range Rover parked on the right hand side of the road in a track which I believe led to fields and a farm. This track was situated near a bend in the road after you crossed the bridge heading towards the A12. As I passed the vehicle, I was aware there were a lot of people in it. I could see that there was two men in the front and also men in the back, but I cannot describe them any further than that. I recall the driver of the Range Rover was wearing a light coloured top. It was this male I remember was looking in my general direction, and it looked like he was following me with his eyes as I drove past them. Because of this, I looked away. I can only add that these men were not old men, but middle-aged. I then drove past them around the bend towards the A12. I never saw them again. At the time of passing the vehicle, I was about 20 feet away, and the weather was fine and clear. I wish to add that I have seen footage of the Range Rover involved in the murders being taken away from the scene by police. It was seeing this Range Rover, and that it was similar to the one that I had seen on December the 6th, that prompted me to call police. I'm unable to give any further details of the vehicle or the persons inside it, other than that the vehicle was facing towards the road and was parked up and not waiting to pull out as there was plenty of gaps. It was my belief that they were waiting for someone or something. I know it was 9:30 hours or thereabouts as I left home in Toll St Major around 9:15 hours, and it was about 15 minutes to get to that location. Okay, now upon hearing that eyewitness account, one of your first thoughts will be, is this Tucker, Tate and Rolfe in the Range Rover? Is this Tucker, Tate and Rolfe at the farm track or at some farm track on the morning of December the 6th? So what I did is I went back and took a look at the telephone evidence. Can we gain anything from that particular data? And you'll see here that at 9:02 a.m, bearing in mind that eyewitness account takes place at around 9:30, but at 9:02 a.m, Tucker is using his mobile phone. He's calling Craig Rolfe's landline, suggesting potentially that Craig Rolfe is at home, but Tony Tucker may well indeed be out and about. At 9:20, Tate's landline to Tony Tucker's mobile. 9:26, Tate's landline to Rolfe's landline. So on the balance of the old probability, you would say that Tate and Rolfe at least are at home during the time when this eyewitness account takes place. I mean, you could say potentially that this could be Tony Tucker in the Range Rover with some other individuals. You can't discount that entirely. But on the balance of probability, it's most likely not Tucker, Tate and Rolfe who was seen by this individual. So then, why is this eyewitness account of any importance? Why is it of any interest at all? Now for me, we've always had this discussion, haven't we? Or this talk of a second vehicle, potentially. Another Range Rover that looks similar in appearance, to that driven by Tucker, Tate and Rolfe. Now, just off the top of my head, in terms of eyewitness accounts, we've got this eyewitness account on the early morning of December the 6th, talking about a Range Rover flying down a residential road being chased by a white vehicle, gunshots being fired, quite an elaborate statement, a statement that was put forward to the police nonetheless. We've also got Rebecca Carr, the teacher. She claims to have seen a dark-coloured Range Rover following a white vehicle at the Rettendon Turnpike, very close to the murder scene, just a matter of a few hours before Tucker, Tate and Rolfe were killed. We also have Francis Theobald. Peter Theobald, the man who found the bodies on the 7th, the farmer, his wife. She claims that she saw a dark-coloured Range Rover pull into the car park of White House Farm alongside a white vehicle. They pull in, they did a loop of the car park and then pull back out onto the main road, heading in the direction of Workhouse Lane. Almost as if they'd come down the hill, overshot the lane, they'd pulled into White House Farm, done a loop back out onto the main road, again potentially or possibly searching for Workhouse Lane. We also have another vehicle at around 7 p.m, which was described as a green Range Rover with rear light guards pulling into Workhouse Lane. So there's the possibility here, isn't there, that we're looking at two similar vehicles connected with this crime. And wait until we get to the second eyewitness account, which I'm going to share with you in a little while, which really does bring all of this together. So let's just say it's not Tucker, Tate and Rolfe, but it may well be connected to these murders. Let's just play a little bit of devil's advocate for a second. Now, let's just say this vehicle was there to maybe scope out this location. We're looking for somewhere suitable to lure Tucker, Tate and Rolfe. Now, my first thoughts were, well, okay, are there any similarities here in terms of where this Range Rover was seen near to the A12 and also the actual location in terms of the crime scene down in Rettendon? Are there any similarities here? And there is actually quite a few. So let's take a look. We've got this Range Rover here seen by this passerby at around 9:30 a.m. on December the 6th. We know that this lane led up to a farm. You've got open fields, open farmland. And I think the first thing that caught my eye was its close proximity to the A12. And I thought to myself, well, hang on a minute. Maybe if they were planning this, they're thinking to themselves, okay, we want to lure them to an isolated, quiet location, but we also want to be close to a main road in order to blend in when we leave, when we escape. And I wondered, was that actually factored into the equation here? We want an isolated location, but close to an A road. Because as you see here, you've got this Range Rover parked up, this suspicious looking Range Rover parked up here, and then just up the road, you've got the A12. And when we go down to where the actual crime took place in Rettendon, which is about 12 miles as the crow flies, many people will know that just off of Workhouse Lane, it joined up to what was the A130, the main road through to Southend. So I'm sure you'll agree that these two locations, they do share certain similarities. And of course, this Range Rover, this whole sighting, it could be completely innocent. It could be just a mere coincidence that this vehicle was parked there on the day that Tucker, Tate and Rolfe were killed. But for the reasons, or for the purposes of this video, we're speculating, aren't we? We're using a little bit of devil's advocate to say, okay, if this vehicle was indeed connected, then what was its purpose for being there? And also, why was this location not suitable to take out Tucker, Tate and Rolfe? Now, if we just zoom in here on the old map, we can see that yes, you've got a farm track there leading up to a farm. It's, it's fairly rural. But the problem here is that you don't actually have anywhere to pen in Tucker, Tate and Rolfe. You can't confine them to a certain area. Whereas when you go down Workhouse Lane, when they drove down the bottom of Workhouse Lane, they were literally trapped up against a 5-bar gate. They couldn't turn round. They'd have to reverse back in the dark or try and drive through a metal gate. Those were the two options. Whereas here, it's a little bit more open, isn't it? You could turn off to the left, off to the right, drive through a hedge, try and make good your escape if someone were, as I say, to pull out a gun from the bushes. You could try and escape from this location. And maybe this location was just deemed unacceptable. It wasn't suitable to take out Tucker, Tate and Rolfe, somewhere else was needed. But for me, what stands out, as I say, is the close proximity to this A road, the A12 and also the A130, where the crime was eventually committed. So it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Were these individuals looking for somewhere to lure Tucker, Tate and Rolfe? Now, one of the reasons why I don't believe that this vehicle was simply, a farmer going out to feed his pigs or feed his pheasants is because this vehicle had multiple occupants. It was almost as if, as that guy said, they were there waiting for someone or something. They could have pulled out into the traffic if they were simply there just to pull out and maybe they were going somewhere. It appeared that they were stationary. They appeared a little bit suspicious. Now, just to give you a little bit of context in terms of where this Range Rover sighting took place, if we just zoom out here, as you can see, we've got Chelmsford, and then to the northeast of there, we've got Witham, we've got Great Braxted, we've got Little Braxted, then we've got Rivenhall End, where this sighting took place, heading towards the A12. But where is this sighting in relation to other focal points in this case? And there's quite a few interesting points here, particularly Marks Tay. Now, Marks Tay is important due to the story put forward by Darren Nichols. He claims that on the evening of December the 6th, this is the location where he met both Jack Womes and Michael Steele. You'll also understand why this becomes relevant when we take a look at this second eyewitness account. So from where this Range Rover was seen, you can see here that it's around about 6.5 miles as the crow flies to Marks Tay. A very, very fast, very, very straight route straight down the A12 there, right to where that Range Rover was seen at 9:30 a.m. on the day of December the 6th. Some other key locations. We've got DC Wolfgang Bird, the corrupt officer. His location, or his house, or his residence I should say, is around about 8.4 miles as the crow flies. Darren Nichols' home address, just over 7 miles, just under 8 miles away. We've got the dumped cannabis, again another key point in this case. That was dumped around 8 miles away from where this Range Rover was situated. The crime scene down in Rettendon, where Tucker, Tate and Rolfe would be found on December the 7th. Let's just zoom in here to get an accurate reading. That's roughly 12.5 miles as the crow flies from where this Range Rover was seen on the morning of December the 6th. We now move on to take a look at a second eyewitness account just 5 days before Tucker, Tate and Rolfe were killed. Take a listen to the following. The following police statement is from Neil Randall Crawleymore, dated the 12th of the 1st, 1996. I am the above described person and I am a farmer resident at the address Overleaf with my wife and young son and stepdaughter. On Friday the 1st of December 1995, I left my home address driving my wife's Daihatsu 4-track, my intention to drive to the Thetford area for a business meeting. En route I stopped off at a Little Chef restaurant which is off the A14 junction with the A140, arriving around 9:15 hours. I was to meet a business associate from PIC, Pig Improvement Company, at this location but arrived early. I sat in my car for a while and noticed a Range Rover vehicle which I believe was coloured metallic blue, parked by the side of me in a parking bay outside the restaurant. There was 3 male persons in the vehicle, 2 in the front and 1 in the back, who I can describe as follows. Driver, male 1, white, between 30 to 40 years of age, 6 foot tall, medium build, dark brown hair, short tidy style, clean shaven, wearing a V-neck green long sleeve jumper and trousers. Front passenger, male 2, white, between 30 to 40 years of age, 6 foot tall and large build, possibly fat, short ear-length hair, slightly curly and greying, clean shaven, wearing a light brown leather bomber jacket and jeans. Rear passenger, male 3, white, between 30 to 40 years of age, large build, short dark hair, clean shaven, 6'2" tall, wearing a light coloured suit, who I would describe as looking like a business person. I would say all 3 looked as if they could handle themselves. While I watched them, male 3 was leaning forward speaking to the two in the front. A short time later, male 3 got out of the vehicle and changed places with male 1, the driver, and they all appeared to be looking at something on the back seat. Male 2 then got into the back seat and male 3 got into the front passenger seat, at which time they appeared to begin arguing over what was on the back seat. This carried on until around 10 o'clock when my colleague arrived and we both went in for breakfast. When we came out at about 10:30 hours, they and the vehicle had gone. I have not seen either of these persons before this incident or seen any pictures of them since, in the newspapers or on television. My only dealings with the incident is a broadcast on the news the day they were found, and it was this which prompted me to call. Okay, so a very interesting eyewitness account just 5 days before Tucker, Tate and Rolfe were killed. And this is about to get even more interesting, so do stick with me. Now let's just go through the descriptions of these individuals. The driver, male 1. He was described as white, between 30 to 40 years of age, 6 foot tall, medium build, dark brown hair, short tidy style, clean shaven, wearing a V-neck green long sleeve jumper and trousers. Front passenger, male 2. He was described as white, between 30 to 40 years of age, 6 foot tall, and large build, possibly fat. Short ear-length hair, slightly curly and greying. Clean shaven, wearing a light brown leather bomber jacket and jeans. Rear passenger, male 3. White, between 30 to 40 years of age, large build, short dark hair, clean shaven, 6 foot 2 tall, wearing a light coloured suit, who he described as looking like a business person. Now, as many people know, after the murders of Tucker, Tate and Rolfe, this was widespread mainstream news. There was the Crime Watch programme, which discussed the murders. There was the photos of Tucker, Tate and Rolfe in every single newspaper. Front page news. Back in 1995, these murders were a big deal. But this guy here, this eyewitness, is quite clearly saying the people that I saw in that Range Rover are not Tucker, Tate and Rolfe. Take a listen to what he says. I have not seen either of these persons before this incident or seen any pictures of them since in the newspapers or on television. So the blue Range Rover here, the 3 individuals, large built individuals, they're not Tucker, Tate and Rolfe. Now, my first thought upon reading this statement was, bloody hell, he's got a lot of detail here in terms of how they look and their general appearance. How the hell does he know that one of them's 6 foot 2 tall? How does he know that the other one's 6 foot and this, that and the other? But then think about it. This guy has actually witnessed these individuals changing places in the Range Rover. They've got out of the vehicle, haven't they, to change positions. So this guy may well have got quite a lot of detail in terms of how these people appeared. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility that he is providing here a very accurate representation of how these individuals looked. Large individuals, 6 foot to 6 foot 2, 30 to 40 years of age, clean shaven, light brown bomber jacket, etc., etc. And it makes me wonder, what were they arguing about on the back seat? Was this product? Was this drugs? Was this a weapon for the upcoming murder? Some sort of fallout, maybe over a price or the quality of something, I don't know. And also the mention there of someone wearing a light coloured suit who appeared to this eyewitness to look like a business person. So we've got the possibility here, haven't we? We've got a blue Range Rover, again seen at a similar time, sort of 9 o'clock, 9:30, conducting some sort of business, 5 days before Tucker, Tate and Rolfe were killed. Now it's about to get a little bit more intriguing. Let's pull up the telephone data once more. Now, as many people know, on the day of the murders, December the 6th, 1995, we have a series of telephone calls from the Sorrel Horse Inn in Ipswich. And it's these calls that the prosecution allege is the setup. Let's call Tucker, let's tell him we're on for this evening. It's these calls that set off the chain of events that culminates in Tucker, Tate and Rolfe's murders. Now, when we take a look at where those telephone calls transpire from, we've got the Sorrel Horse Inn, and quite clearly, it's just a mere stone's throw from Jack Wome's workplace, G&T Commercials. Now, for a lot of people, they talk about, the Billy Jasper theory, they were killed at midnight and all this sort of stuff. But the one question that no one can answer, if you do believe in the Billy Jasper theory, is why was Darren Nichols in Rettendon? That's the elephant in the room. It's the question that no one wants to answer. Why was Darren Nichols in Rettendon? Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because they were killed at... No, it does matter. It really does. Darren Nichols had no friends in Rettendon. He had no family in Rettendon. He had no business being in Rettendon on the evening that Tucker, Tate and Rolfe were killed. And his attendance in Rettendon just so happened to coincide with Tucker, Tate and Rolfe falling off the face of the earth, as in their phones go completely silent. The reason for that, ladies and gentlemen, is because Tucker, Tate and Rolfe are dead. It's quite simple. It's the most simple, basic and logical explanation. But for me personally, in this case, I've never been convinced that Michael Steele and Jack Womes are the individuals who pulled the trigger. I believe there's the potential here of a third party involvement. Now remember what Darren Nichols said during his earliest police interviews. Yeah, I met up with Mick Steele and he said to me, you're going to meet up with Jack. He's going to show you where this meeting's taking place, where this deal's taking place. But don't worry, there'll be some other people already there. Talking about not Jack Womes, not Michael Steele, but a separate third entity. As Darren Nichols is dropping Jack Womes off, Darren Nichols says to him, can I go and get a drink? How long have I got? How long are you going to be? He says, no, it won't be long. Once the Range Rover arrives, we'll be about 5 minutes. There's some other people already there. And this is when they're actually pulling up to the lane. Jack, according to Darren Nichols, said, don't worry, there's some other people already waiting down the lane. So I've always been quite intrigued by this idea of a third party involvement. Maybe Jack Womes and Michael Steele simply lured Tucker, Tate and Rolfe to a place where other people were already waiting. So again, my opinion is that there could be a third party involvement here. I don't believe in this midnight theory because none of that makes sense. There's no evidence, there's no proof of life for Tucker, Tate and Rolfe post 7 o'clock. No one can even prove that they're alive post 7 o'clock. And no one, literally no one, can give an answer as to why Darren Nichols was in Rettendon. As a small village, a place he had no business being. Anyway, let's get back to it. We've got this eyewitness account. We've got the telephone calls on the day of the murder from the Sorrel Horse Inn. These are the calls which, as I say, supposedly set off the chain of events. It's the call that sets up the meeting for later that night. Now take a look at where this eyewitness account takes place with the little chef. We've got Jack Womes' workplace right there, G&T Commercials. We've got the Sorrel Horse Inn. We've got a Range Rover with individuals who are not Tucker, Tate and Rolfe. A blue Range Rover, metallic blue Range Rover. We've got an argument which breaks out over something on the back seat. We don't know what that is. Is that a weapon? Is it drugs? We don't know. There's someone dressed as a businessman. Again, potential third party involvement. Now, you're not going to believe this. G&T Commercials, Jack Womes' workplace, Sorrel Horse Inn, the phone calls that set up the meet on December the 6th. Let's take a look at where this eyewitness account takes place, at the Little Chef. Right here. This is where the Little Chef was located back in 1995. Just 2 miles on a straight road to Jack Womes' workplace. So again, for me, there's every possibility here that there's a second Range Rover, a blue Range Rover, that's not driven by Tucker, Tate and Rolfe, and there is the potential here for some third party involvement. as I say, it's very, very difficult to take a look at this case, an honest look at this case, and say to yourselves, no, Jack Womes wasn't there. No, Michael Steele wasn't there. Darren Nichols wasn't there. You have to deal with the evidence. It's that simple. The evidence suggests that Darren Nichols is in Rettendon. Jack Womes is in Rettendon by his own admission. Darren Nichols is in a small village where he has no business to be. No friends, no family, no workplace, no connections whatsoever. But yet, as I say, I've never been convinced that Michael Steele and Jack Womes actually pulled the trigger. So could it be that their role in all of this was simply to get Tucker, Tate and Rolfe to the bottom of Workhouse Lane? And who the hell is in this Range Rover? A trio of individuals, one person dressed as a businessman. The argument that breaks out on the back seat. The sighting again of a similar blue Range Rover on the day of the murders, some 12.5 miles away, parked up near the entrance to a farm track, again close to the A12, close to an A road in order to make their escape. Do let me know some of your thoughts down below. Do you believe that there could be a second Range Rover, a second similar looking Range Rover to that driven by Tucker, Tate and Rolfe? Let me know some of your thoughts down in the comment section below.